Hey everyone, it's Eric from freelearner.how. Welcome to this episode of Eric Playing with His Toys. About a month ago, I went and purchased this equipment to put a new system build together. I wanted to replace my aging desktop computer and ended up with the Intel Core i7-8086 processor. Now, this isn't the 8086 processor of the late 70s. No, this is the 40-year special anniversary edition. It's basically a tweaked 8th generation Intel Core i7 to the max. Intel's kind of spec sheet for it is it's the first kind of run-of-the-mill desktop processor that'll give you 5 gigahertz of performance. Now, there have been some great articles and reviews on this, and I'll link kind of the AnonTech article. I think is probably one of my favorites on this down below. But what you'll see if you look into the details is the reality is the 8700K processor from Intel is basically the same thing. It's the same underlying physical hardware at a better price point. So why did I end up with the 8086? Well, I went and ordered the 8700K, and immediately after placing my order, ended up on back order, and I sat waiting for nearly a week before giving up, and happened to find this thing available for order immediately on Amazon, so I picked it up, and allowed me to complete my new system build. Of course, if you're doing any system build, you got to get the unlocked processors so you can do some overclocking. I'm not an extreme overclocker. There are some folks who go to the max on kind of every possible thing they can do to get every possible gigahertz out of the processor. Instead, my strategy for overclocking is push it until things start crashing. And then pull it back a little bit. And if it's stable, that's good enough. Just leave it there. And I'll tend to leave things sort of sitting at that point for an extended period of time and not tweak with it after that. So as you can see kind of off in the corner of the screen here, I've got hardware monitor running. Right now it's sitting idle. On individual core performance, I've found it to be quite stable at 5.3 gigahertz. So you can kind of see how I've got some spikes there at 5.3 gigahertz. Now, when all cores are running, it's not quite that fast. I'm getting about 5 gigahertz in a second here. I'm going to go and fire up a CPU monitor CPU miner, just so you can see how I'm going and stressing all 6 cores. There's some pretty good graphics and articles out there that kind of show what the core approach to these things are. Off the top of my head, I think it's about 4.7 gigahertz. And it's just that single core that Intel's really pushed to try and give you that 5 gigahertz. What you'll see, and I'm going to go ahead and fire up my miner now. It'll take just a moment. You'll see some of my cores spiking. I get the 5.3. Ooh, looks like that almost for a second there I had 5.3 across all of them. And then once things go and I start hitting 100% across my CPUs, which we'll see in just a moment here, then 5 gigahertz on all 6 cores, which is fantastic. So there you go, 5 gigahertz, all 6 cores. I'm running hyperthreading as well, so it shows 12. But the reality is it's just the 6 non-hyperthreaded cores that really matter here from a performance perspective. Those hyperthreading is just a minuscule difference. So there we go, consistently running all 6 cores at 5 gigahertz. Now, in order to do this, I am using a closed loop water cooling system. This one's from Corsair. I'll include a link for it down below as well as the rest of the build components, just so you can see kind of what I put together. It's always fun to see what others are building and playing with. The big gotcha here, you'll notice right now my power consumption is about 145 watts or so. So a fair amount of power. The TDP for this processor is supposed to be 95 watts. So now it will burst higher, it'll run higher than that, and then of course my overclocking pushes it a bit more. So that's a fair amount of watts. You'll see now my temperature is already in the 80s at package, And if I let this run for a few minutes, I've seen spots where it'll get as high as 90 degrees Celsius. Even with this big old water cooling system on it, 320 millimeter fans, and a 380 millimeter radiator. So it is generating quite a bit of heat. In case anyone's wondering what I'm running right now, it's Lyra 2Z CPU miner, cryptocurrency miner. It's from a profitability perspective, with me consuming 145 watts, it's pennies a day. Certainly not worth going and pushing a processor like this hard. I'd shorten the life of it, certainly, if I were to run it like this 24/7. But that's not really the intent. My intent here is to have something that I'm happy with and I can keep for a long time. So far I'd say I'm pretty happy with it. Had it for about 3 weeks now. I'll continue playing around with it. Anyway, hope you enjoy the video, give me your comments. I'd love to hear. Subscribe, give me your comments. I'd love to hear kind of if you've had opportunities to play around with the 8086 processor or the 8700K, hope to join us next time. Thanks a lot.